take two. Actually, hold on one moment. Let me make sure that I've got chat up and running properly. So if there are any questions that come up, I will be prepared to answer them. Hope everybody's having a great afternoon. It is snowy as heck out here. In fact, let's have a look. Ooh, yes. So that's the view that I have outside from my studio right now. As you can see, it's a lot of white. Let me see if I can close up that aperture to make it a little easier for you to see. Yep. It is bright and snowy and actually quite beautiful right now. So yeah, snowy day. Figured it's a good day to chill out, do a quick tour of the studio. So if anybody has any questions or anything, hey, Sergo, how's it going? Nice to see you. So I'm just going to take you guys very informally through my setup and primarily talk about what I do during my live streams. But, we'll see. I'll probably point out a lot of other stuff along the way as well. So, first and foremost, I think a lot of the feedback that I get is around my pedal board. So, let's show you guys the monstrosity that is the primary pedal board. All right, very good. Let me zoom in on that just a touch. Yeah, that's not too bad. So, this is pedal board number 1. And on this board, the signal path starts off with a tuner. This is a Digitech polyphonic tuner. Good tuner. I like it. It's accurate and fairly quick. And that's really all that I ask for. Oh, this giant camera lens is in the way. Yeah, that was inevitable that was going to happen. That's all right. Everything's fine. Everything's under control. All right. Try to keep this cable out of your way. Like I said, very informal tour. Come on, cable. Okay. From the tuner, we go into our Digitech Freakout pedal. This is what gives me my really nice feedback sound without having to have anything actually amplified in this room. So when I do my live streams, there is no amplification in the room. There's no, actually, if you step into the room, it will be completely silent. So you can't really get feedback that way unless you do it, via some artificial means, and that's exactly what this pedal does. It does it very well. That is going into my Pigtronics Philosopher's Tone. Great name. Oops. And that is a compressor pedal. It's a compressor / distortion. I don't really use the distortion on it, so I just use it as a really heavy compressor. And as you can see, I have it set to pretty extreme values. I like when I use it, I like it to be extremely noticeable. Right now, that pedal is going into an Analog Man Prince of Tone. This is a very renowned blues breaker style overdrive pedal. Basically one half of their King of Tone pedal, which is extremely difficult to get. The Prince of Tone is a little bit easier to come by, but still sounds just as good. That is going into an Electro Harmonix mono synth. So if you guys listen to my streams, you guys will hear occasionally some synthesizer sounds coming from my guitar, and that's how I do it with this current setup. It tracks okay. It's not the greatest in the world, but it kind of serves the need when I need sort of a TB303 style sound on the fly. It does the trick in a pinch. That is going into a TC Electronic Helix phaser. I really like this pedal. It is a digital pedal, and a lot of folks are kind of against digital phasers. This one I just think happens to sound really good. So I've kept it on the pedal board, even though I have a whole bunch of other phaser choices, including one that's on my other board that I'll show you in a moment. In fact, I've got one just sitting right here that would be a perfectly lovely choice. Classic MXR Phase 90. I don't know, for some reason, as soon as I put the Helix on the board, I thought it sounded great right from the get-go, and I haven't felt a need to change it out. Okay, that is going over to... that swings over to this DoD Looking Glass. Actually, the next several pedals are my overdrives and distortions, aside from the King of Tone. The Prince of Tone. I just happened to put this on here to sort of test it out. But the rest of my dirt pedals are connected to this switcher. Right now I'm only using channels 1 through 5 on the switcher. So channel 1 is my DoD Looking Glass overdrive. Very cleverly named because it is meant to be sort of a quote-unquote transparent overdrive. I think it sounds great. That one's been on the board for pretty much ever since I got it. The next one is this T-Rex Diva, which is sort of a modified tube screamer style circuit. And I've quite liked it. I like it on its own, and I really like it if I'd run the compressor into it. And I'll use that for lead tones during my live stream from time to time. So it makes it kind of versatile that it works pretty nicely with the compressor going into it. Next pedal is my Wampler Dual Fusion. I really only use the right channel on it, which I think is the just a slightly tweaked version of the Wampler Euphoria pedal, which I think it itself is kind of his sort of Dumble style pedal, if I remember correctly. And that sounds really good. I've tried using this left channel as well, and I don't know, it just doesn't quite it doesn't quite do as much for me. Yeah, there's a ton of wires, and people ask me, why don't you cable this up a little bit more formally? Why don't you do a nicer cabling job? And I get it. Yes, I probably should do that, but at the same time, I'm so regularly taking things off of this board and putting new things on that are completely differently shaped that I don't want to cable things, say, for this particular setup and then not be able to change things up in the future. I don't want to be limited to a particular setup. I want to be able to swap things in and out very easily. So that is part of the reason why I do what I do. And the other part is I just can't stand cabling. I hate it. It is really... I have to do a lot of cabling for my job, actually, and it is probably my least favorite part of my job. So when I have to do cabling for fun, for the stuff that I find fun, it just feels like work, and I don't like that. Anyway, channel 4 on the switcher is the J-Rocket The Dude. This one has been another pedal that's been basically on my board and has not come off since I got it. It just sounds great. Another sort of Dumble-style pedal, but this one has a unique voice that I haven't really heard in any of the other Dumble-style pedals. Really beefy type sound. Probably one of my favorite pedals. The next one is my Westminster Effects Knox 800. This one of these days, I'm going to get a camera during my live stream that's set tight onto that pedal. Because his eyes light up. You can probably see the two LEDs by his lights. Maybe not. But those light up when you play, and it's very cool. And it sounds great. It's it's a kind of a Marshall in a box type pedal. And I really love it. Kind of had it on my board for a while, took it off. Then when I put it back on, I realized why I liked it so much, and I don't see that one coming off anytime soon. From there, that is going into, if I remember correctly, this is where things get a little bit fuzzy for me. But I believe that the output from so that's channel 5 in the switcher. I believe that the output of the switcher then goes into a pedal. Yeah, you can kind of see it over here. It's kind of buried under amidst a bunch of wires here. But my Electro-Harmonix hum debugger. In fact, I can probably get in a little tighter on that one. Yeah, that's right, Sergo. I'm telling a little story with each pedal. So yeah, quite buried there, but the hum debugger actually really helps out a lot with this setup in this kind of crazy studio with not very good power coming into the house, very old wiring in the house. It really cleans things up a ton. So I've got one on this board, and as you'll see, I've got one on my other board as well. That is going into my, and again, this is going to be difficult to get on camera. Yeah, I've got too much stuff in the way. Sorry, not sorry. But you can kind of see it. It is my, you know what? I'm going to take this off the, just trying to think of the best way to do this since I am kind of hand-holding a mic. I didn't really think this through. Well, let me see what I can do for you guys. This is asking for trouble. Definitely asking for trouble. Yeah, that's not going to work. Not going to work. You're just going to have to take my word for it that this is a Fender DeVille amp. It is a 4x10, but I'm not actually using the speakers on it. What I am doing is I'm taking the output, the speaker out, and that is going into this box. And let me see if I can get this on camera. Yes, no, yes, yes. So this is a 2 notes torpedo captor. So this is taking my speaker output and converting it to a line level. So instead of having to go into an actual set of speakers, this is just taking that signal, making it a line level signal, and then that's something that I can feed right back into my effects loop, which is down here. So the effects loop starts off with a JHS little black buffer, and it's going to be very hard to see. But that is... Nope. On, you can do it. There we go. There it is. JHS little black buffer. That, in turn, is going into this full drive Deja Vibe, which is a great sounding unified pedal. And it's not a wah, but basically you can use your foot to adjust the speed of the vibe. And it sounds great. I use that quite a bit. Next, that is going into my Eventide pitch factor, which is a intelligent harmonizer, pitch shifter, all that good stuff. I don't use that one too often, but you guys will notice sometime in my streams when I will play a single note and kind of this 4-note harmony jumps out. That's what's creating that. I am going stereo out. Excuse me. I might have had the order wrong on that one. Yeah, actually, I apologize. The Deja Vibe is actually going into my Alexander Pedals Sky-Fi. This guy right here. which is a great kind of lexicon style reverb, and it does a lovely octave, what everybody calls a shimmer style reverb. Does that really well. So that is going into my Eventide pitch factor. And then we're going stereo out from that. And then it's coming up here, and I'm doing something a little bit odd up here, as if, as if this setup isn't odd enough. I have one half of that stereo output from the Eventide going into this Ventura Vibe. And I'm probably going to change out this pedal. I'm not super happy with it. But half is going directly into here, and half is going into this TC Electronic Mimic Mini. The Mimic gives me sort of a double-tracked guitar sound. So I use that to give me a double-tracked sound on one channel, and then I have my unaffected sound on the other channel, and that gives me kind of a nice stereo spread. So we have the Ventura Vibe. That gives me, it does univibe, it does vibrato, and it does a Leslie effect, and right now I have it set to its Leslie setting. And it's okay. It's not great, and I think that's why it's going to come off the board, because it's just okay. I find myself using the univibe a lot more than the Ventura Vibe. Then we have a TC Electronic Flashback X4. Really great delay pedal. Relatively inexpensive as well. I think it compares very favorably to the much more expensive pedals that are on the market. So I really like it. That is going into an Eventide Space reverb. Very nice, well-renowned reverb pedal. And then finally, that is going into my Pigtronics Infinity Looper. And that's one of the 3 loopers that I have in this setup. Not counting the Flashback X4, because that has a looper built into it as well. The Infinity loopers have pretty good MIDI sync, and that's how I'm keeping all these loopers in sync with one another, because I have everything synced via MIDI on my DAW. So that, all that is going stereo out into a thingy over here. Let me see. Yeah, so that's all going into a BBE Sonic Maximizer. And then, in turn, that's going into my M Audio 2626. It's an audio interface, but I'm just using it for its ADAT connectivity. So I'm going stereo into a couple channels on that guy, and then ADAT out into my actual workstation, which is going to be tough to see on camera, but I'll see what I can do. Yeah, my chair might be in the way. Yeah, my chair is going to be in the way. Anyway, that's board number 1. There's more. All right, let's zoom out. And this madness over here, we've got board number 2. And by the way, I switch between my pedal boards using this Electro Harmonics Switchblade switcher. It's okay. It's not the greatest, but it works. So, pedal board number 2 is even more of a mess than the first one. The first one seems neat by comparison. Yeah, you're not kidding, Sergo. So, we are going into an Electro Harmonics Attack Decay pedal. Very cool sounding pedal. It was just recently featured on a JHS Pedals video talking about some of the most underrated Electro Harmonics pedals. And I would certainly agree with that. It is a kind of comparable to the old Boss slow gear pedal, but it does a heck of a lot more than that. Very cool pedal. So I use that for kind of doing automated volume swells. And next to that, we've got our, sorry for the shaky cam here, hard to avoid. We've got our MXR Phase 95. Now what's cool about that, a couple things. Really nice small form factor, and it doesn't emulate, it has the circuitry for a kind of a newer block style Phase 90. Again, like that one. Come on, focus. Yeah, like that one. But it also has the circuitry for the old script style Phase 90 as well. So depending on which sound you prefer, you can do both. That is going into a Dan Electro Fab Overdrive. Super cheap. I think I got mine for $14 or $15 or something like that, and you can very easily get them new for $20 or $25 these days. It sounds great. So it's, the build quality is okay. It's plastic, but it's solid. And like I said, it sounds terrific, and it's based off of an old, oh gosh, I can't even remember the name of the overdrive that it was based off of, but a very rare, hard to find overdrive. So it doesn't really sound like anything else that you're going to find on the market today. Definitely worth picking up. That is going into an exotic EP booster. I'm using it just to give a little bit of a goose to my output signal on this particular board. And then that is going into a Sur Riot, which I don't use too frequently on this board, but when I need a really heavy distortion sound or a lot of gain, a lot of amplification, if I need it gives me additional signal boost above and beyond what the EP boost does. You can see that unity gain on this, which is where I have it set, is like at 9 o'clock on the dial. It gets really loud really quickly. So good pedal. I just don't find myself using it quite a bit. Probably just doesn't really fit my style of music. That is going into this amp. Let me see if I can find it over here. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, sorry, there's kind of some stuff blocking it. Let me see if I can clear the way a little bit. So, you know what, let me turn up the lights on it so you can see it better. So that's going into, this board is going into my Hughes & Kettner Tubemeister 18 amp. But again, even though it's on top of a big speaker cab, I'm not actually using that speaker output at all. I'm just going, the Hughes & Kettner amps from this line, the Tubemeister amps, you can actually select them to either output their maximum wattage, 5 watts, 1 watt, or speaker off. So I just have mine set to speaker off, and then I'm running the send from the amp into my effects loop over here. So the first pedal in the effects loop is actually kind of an unusually placed pedal. You wouldn't normally put this in an effects loop, but I like what it does to the quality of my sound. Oh, I definitely have gear acquisition syndrome. You kidding me? That pedal that is kind of lying on its side, pointing down, is a Vertex steel string pedal. Let me make sure I got the name right. Yeah, let me make this so you guys can see it a little better. So that guy right there. I know that Mason from Vertex Pedals, how can I put it? A little bit sketchy, perhaps. The company claims that this pedal was designed after, spending a whole bunch of time, countless hours in front of a Dumble steel string amp. And while people on the internet say, no, actually this is based off of a schematic that's been on the internet for 10 or 15 years for a boost pedal that costs like $20 to make. So, but either way, I like what it does to my sound. I don't use it to boost my signal because again, it's in the effects loop, so that wouldn't be the right place to do it anyway. It's kind of I kind of use it as an EQ pedal, and I have it always on. Next is an Electro Harmonix Good Vibes pedal. Really good sounding Univibe pedal. I don't know what else to add to that, but I use that pretty frequently with my ambient sounds on this board. I'll add in the Univibe, and I have an expression pedal connected to it, so I can automatically change or very easily change with my feet the speed of the vibrato. So great pedal, very affordable too. Then we have the Walrus Slow Reverb. Great ambient reverb. Next, I have my Electro Harmonix Grand Canyon delay. Let me zoom out a little bit. That is going stereo out into a Eventide time factor delay. And then from there, this is going to be tough for you guys to see. I have one of those two outputs going into this pedal that you definitely cannot see, but I want to show you. This is the Electro Harmonix Analogizer. And I'm using it similarly to how I'm using the TC Electronic Mimic Mini on the other board. I'm using it to kind of give me a double-tracked sound on this board. So again, it gives me a nice stereo spread. So one of those channels is going into the Oceans 12, and then the other one is coming in directly from the time factor. And the Oceans 12 is a terrific multi reverb unit from Electro Harmonix. Really great reverb pedal. And then finally, this is going into the TC Electronic Ditto X4. A lot of people don't like this pedal, but it's probably been the most consistently accurate looper that I have in this setup. It just doesn't give me any problems. So, and then that is going into another channel in the M Audio 2626 that I showed you guys earlier. And then that goes into my my DAW. Within my DAW, I use Torpedo's Wall of Sound software to get me cabinet emulation. So at the end of the day, I have like this really good guitar sound that doesn't need any, it doesn't need to be mic'd. It doesn't need to be loud. It is essentially completely silent. Like the loudest thing in the room during my live streams is me talking, which is great because I'm doing them after hours, after I put my girls to bed. So it it works out perfectly for me. As you guys can probably tell, there's a boatload of other pedals just lying around. I am working on finding a nice way to hold and display these pedals, because obviously this is kind of a shame that I'm having to do it this way. You can see there is a huge pile down here. There's a bracelet that my daughter made me down here. Great stuff in here. Really like that Viscous Vibe pedal. That's a digital Univibe pedal. It sounds really good. Here's a T-Rex Mudhoney up here. Great, the Mudhoney 2, so a 2-channel Mudhoney. Smoke and Amp Company, that's their Dumble steel string clone. Sounds a little bit different from the Vertex Effects pedals. I don't think it sounds quite as good as the Vertex pedal, but it's still really nicely made. Some other people might like it better. And the Visual Sound Route 66, it's a compressor and a tube screamer built into one. Great pedal. Just all sorts of great stuff. I mean, really, I could completely redo either one of these boards with all these pedals that I have on the floor, and they would probably sound as good, if not better. Just so many good choices. I'm very fortunate. Let me see what else. Oh, so for the last month or two, I've been doing bass as well, bass looping. I don't have a board for that, so I just have some, as you can see, this really, really, really bad mess. Yeah, I went from the messy to really messy to holy smokes, how do you deal with this in that order? This is really kind of nuts, but this is my my bass rig right now. So the bass goes into the Polytune 3, which seems to handle bass fairly well. I haven't actually tried it polyphonically on the bass. I don't really need the poly for the bass. It's only 4 strings. That is going into a Boss Dynamic Wah. Really good pedal. I used to have that on my main board for my wah, but actually I've been using just a. I didn't show you guys. It's important stuff down here that I didn't show you. So 2 things. This is actually part of my main board that I forgot to mention to you. This is the talk box, and then my Crybaby. So I use an actual Crybaby wah-wah pedal on my main board. But anyway, I use the Boss Dynamic Wah on the bass. That sounds good. And then I use a Behringer octave pedal when I want to do a sub or a sub octave. It's a good pedal, and it's dirt cheap. I think in the U.S. you can get them for $19 now from Sweetwater. So it's, well worth that. That is going into another Infinity Looper. This one has been having trouble with its MIDI sync. I don't think it's the fault of the looper. I think it's having trouble getting the MIDI clock. I think there's a problem with the MIDI output on the device that it's connected to. It's actually connected via MIDI out on the Ditto X4. And I think the MIDI out on my X4 is having some issues. So anyway, when like last night, for example, during my live stream, suddenly I noticed that my bass looper had the start of the measure on the wrong beat. That's what happened there. Then, lastly, on here we have a sans amp, or sans amp, as the French might say. Bass DI pedal. So I don't use a amp simulator plugin like I do for my guitars. I just use the Sans amp pedal, and that works well. I actually use that for all the bass on my album, and that pedal worked really well. That's probably, of all the things that people have criticized on my album, and rightfully so, I feel like the bass sound is the one thing where everybody's been like, yeah, actually that sounds really good. So that all came from that pedal. So that is my guitars and basses for my live streaming setup. As far as my everything else, this is the mic that I use. This is a Studio Electronics C3 mic, multi-pattern condenser mic. Very affordable. I think they still make them. But kind of an expensive sounding mic that isn't very affordable. Next to that is the keyboard that I've been primarily using for my live streams, and that's a Novation X Station. I don't use the internal sound engine on the X Station. I just use it as a MIDI controller, and that is currently controlling everything through this guy here, the MPC Touch. Let me see if I can get this set up so I can let go. Yeah, there we go. So let me zoom in on this, and then turn it on for you guys. So this is the thing that I create all of my grooves on. It has a touch screen, and actually, because I don't have the MPC software loaded in right now, it's just acting as a second, or in this case, a third monitor or from my computer. You can actually see the Windows desktop on here. If I click here, it should, but it's not going to. It should pop up a start menu, but it's not gonna, because that's what happens when you try to do a live stream and show people something on a live stream. This is connected via USB to my computer. It talks directly to the MPC software that I run within my DAW, and that allows me to load in all sorts of drum kits, various percussion. No, I use a... Hey, Stuart, how's it going? I use a DAW for live. I use Reaper. And I do that for two reasons. One is that gives me kind of a centralized MIDI synchronization point. But secondly, it just allows me to easily record the live streams. And I am very slowly going through the process of mixing some of the best parts of the live streams. And I'll put out something. I'll put out a release on Bandcamp that contains just the good stuff from my live streams from the last several months. So I'll let you guys know when that's ready. But this is what I've been using for the last 2 or 3 weeks to come up with my grooves on the spot. Previously, I was using a drum machine. There were actually a couple different things that I used prior to that, including this Electribe ER1, which is actually great. Probably, sometime around 1999, 2000 is when this box came out. But I wanted the ability to... instead of having to use pre-programmed patterns and whatnot, I wanted to be able to come up with some stuff on the fly. So the MPC allows me to do all that stuff dynamically. And it also allows me to loop keyboard parts, which I was struggling to do previously during my streams. So yeah, that is the vast majority of my live streaming setup. As far as the rest of the studio, right below that, I've got a Casio VZ1 synthesizer. Kind of a late 80s vintage synth that very similar to a DX7 sonically, slightly different engine. Does it run in timeline? You're able to clip trigger in a similar way to Ableton. So the MPC software actually just runs as a plugin within Reaper. So I get full control over the MPC as if I was running it in standalone mode. But again, it just kind of runs as its own track within Reaper. So in that way, it's been pretty easy to manage. And I like Reaper. Reaper. I used to use Pro Tools all the time, and I just found it. There were too many things that it couldn't do, whereas Reaper kind of gave me the freedom to. I guess, like you said, it is very customizable, and I guess that's both a a good thing and a bad thing. But yeah, I like having all of my options available to me. As you can see just by looking at the studio, I like having options. Let's take a look at some of the synths that I have. This guy up here is a Korg DW8000. One of these days, I might try to move this over to maybe I'll swap spots with the VZ1, so I can get the DW8000 in a place where I can actually play it during the live streams, because it's a really great sounding synth. Below that, I have the Behringer, what people like to call the Bogue, their mini Moog clone, and that is sitting on top of a Kawai K5 synthesizer. Really interesting synth. That guy is an additive synthesizer that also happens to have subtractive filters on it. So very ahead of its time insofar as what you could actually do with it. And it can make sounds that you really couldn't make from pretty much any other synthesizer of its era. Unfortunately, I think because it was a little ahead of its time, sometimes the software can be a little bit buggy or laggy, because it was just trying to do so much. But a really good board. I was glad that they had one for sale at a local store a couple of years ago. I was able to make some trades and pick it up. Then below that, I have a Roland Alpha Juno 2. That one probably doesn't need too much introduction. I think most folks who subscribed to my channel when it was the Synthesizer Addict are probably familiar with the Alpha Juno line. Great synths that were, maybe not the highest regard in their day, but I think as time goes on, I think they're more and more respected for what you can do on them and how good they sound. Then this guy, who's kind of tucked on this guitar stand here, kind of sitting in the dark a little bit, is a CL DK70. I believe, if I remember correctly, it is almost identical to the Korg Poly 800, with a few differences that make the DK70 better. I think the big thing is that the DK70 responds to MIDI CC, whereas the Poly 800 doesn't. So there are a lot of parameters that you can change on the fly using some sort of MIDI CC device like a Behringer BCR 2000, which I happen to have over here. What prompted me to set up my own studio? I love music. love everything about music. I wish I could make it my, the thing that I do every day for a living. But since I'm, fortunate enough to have the means to get all this stuff, this is what I do to, kind of scratch that itch. Yeah. There's other synths in the corner here, which I don't think you're going to be able to see on camera, and unfortunately, I just can't get the camera over there. But there's a Yamaha DX100. There's a M Audio Venom synth, digital synth, probably about 15 years old now. But actually really good, very underrated. I think people used to crap on it all the time, but I actually rather like it. I thought it was a neat idea and sounded pretty good. I need to goof around with that one again sometime soon because, I don't think it gets enough love. Next to that, I have an Ensoniq ESQ1, another synth that wasn't super popular in its day, but has gotten a lot more love as the years have gone on. What else? Up here, we've got an original Korg Wave Station. I think everybody knows that one. I've thought about getting modular stuff. Here's the thing. I'm addicted to so much music stuff right now. I'm afraid that if I start collecting modular stuff, that that's just going to be this whole other rat hole that of stuff that I'm just going to start collecting, just getting modules upon modules upon modules, and I don't think I can do that to myself right now. But yeah, I've definitely thought about it. Because the modular stuff is super cool. Let me see. Below the Wave Station is a Roland D50. Again, another legend. Anybody who subscribed to my channel while I was the synthesizer addict knows the D50. Below that, as a Korg Prophecy that's unfortunately got some crap on it right now, as does my Novation Zio synth. Great sounding synth, terrible key bed on it. Probably the worst keys that I have of nearly any synth in my studio. And below that, unfortunately acting as a guitar pedal stand right now, is a vintage Fender Rhodes 73. It was pretty beat up when I bought it. I bought it, I think it was in 1999. I bought it for $100. It sounds great, but it was pretty rough and pretty beat up. And unfortunately, I have not given it the love that it deserves since then. As you can tell by the fact that it's, basically just used as a stand for holding pedals. Kind of sad, and I feel bad about it. All right. If we look over here, we've got a little rack with a few things in here. We've got an Oberheim Matrix 1000. Let me turn off this light so you're not getting the glare. This was a synth that when it came out, I don't think it got too much love because you couldn't really edit any of the sounds on board. There really weren't any. There wasn't any ability to edit sounds from this front panel. But as time went on, computer setups got more capable. Suddenly, you had both software editors and hardware editors again, like the BCR 2000 from Behringer, that allowed you to edit this, and it became basically it was a Matrix 6 in a 1U form factor. So it's become a lot more popular over time as a result. That one I think I only paid $200 for that, which was a nice deal. The JV 1080, another kind of legendary early 90s synth. That one I think I got for $40 from a guy who just lived one town over. Had a couple of expansion cards in it also. That was a nice deal. You'll notice that a lot of the stuff that I have might not be the most beautiful, might not be in the best shape, and that's because I've gotten, I try to get deals on things, even if they're broken, and then I have a bad habit of fixing things up enough so that they work, but not enough so that they look nice. And this is one of those ones, the Roland VP 9000. Although I don't think I actually had to fix anything on that. It just has a missing knob. But this was cool. This was a sampler that was one of the first ones to do kind of intelligent time stretching. This goes back to, again, probably the very early 2000s. So it's not super useful today, but back in the day it was pretty revolutionary. You can see it actually uses zip drives, so that'll give you an idea of its vintage. And then below that, I've got a Roland D550 that you guys might have seen the video that I did on that. And you can see it has the nice, very bright replacement screen that I put on it. But again, another case of me fixing the thing up enough so that it works, but not enough so that it looks super pretty. Because I haven't actually done anything to address this gaping hole that's in here right now. But it works great. And that screen is, as you can see, super duper bright. Let me see if I can adjust the aperture so you can actually see the screen. Yeah, almost. Anyway. So that's that side of things. And if we get over here, which you guys never see on stream, we have my Korg ARP Odyssey. So this was the first generation of their ARP Odyssey reissues. What can you say? Yeah. I've got the Behringer Super Fuzz, and I've also got the Boss pedal that it's based off of. Yeah. So the Behringer Super Fuzz is based off of this pedal, the Boss FC2. I mean, they sound basically identical. As far as plugins go, actually, I don't discriminate. If the plugin sounds good and it has a decent interface, I'll use it. So I've got quite a few plugin synths as well. In fact, I just bought. I think the company's called Cherry Audio, and they have a new Polymoog VST, which sounds really good. And it's laid out very intuitively. Takes a little getting used to for a few minutes because the way that the Polymoog did filtering is not necessarily like you see in most other synthesizers. But yeah, I'll gladly use a plug. Oh, you specifically asked about Roland plugins. Yeah, I think I subscribed to their cloud program for about a year, and at the time, I don't know if they still do this deal, but at the time, if you subscribed to them for a year, you got to pick 2 plugins that you could keep forever. So I picked their TB303 plugin and the Jupiter 8 plugin. I wish that I'd picked the Jupiter 8 one. I'm glad that I picked out because that one sounds good. The 303 one, I wish that I hadn't done because very shortly thereafter, Behringer came out with the 303 clone. Oh yeah, I have the all those Korg Legacy VSTs, the M1, the Wave Station. What else? The Monopoly, the MS-20. Yeah, those sound great. Those I use those. In fact, I had a rack mount M1R expanded, and I ended up trading that as part of what I traded in to get my Strandberg guitar. Because it was just I never found myself using the hardware one because the software one was so good. And I mean, quite frankly, I don't use the M1 too frequently anyway. Let me see. So yeah, as I mentioned, I've got the Behringer TB303 clone, that little guy in blue there, and then right next to him, I have one of the Korg MS-20 reissues. This keyboard, synthesizer rather, definitely holds a special place in my heart. My high school, when I was growing up, had a vintage MS-20, and my buddy Matt and I just goofed around on that thing all the time. And I remember very vividly, one day he was goofing around and he came up with a patch that sounded like Keith Emerson's sound that he used in the Lucky Man solo. And in the manual, the school even still had the manual for the MS-20. He the manual had some pages towards the end where you could write down your settings for your patches. So he wrote in the settings for Lucky Man, and he got in so much trouble from the teacher. The teacher's like, "Why are you writing in the manual?" And he thought he was doing a good thing. But I guess she didn't want the manual touched. Oops. Oh, well. Anyway, all these keyboards, this one's going to be very hard for you guys to see. Let me zoom out a little bit. But all that stuff is sitting on top of a Kurzweil MIDI board. You can see the keys from it. You just can't really see the... there you go. MIDI board. Oh, yeah. I'm on one hand, I'm excited for the Selena clone to come out, but I don't think I'm going to get it because I think that, this guy that I have over here, hopefully I can move my chair out of the way enough for you guys to be able to see it. Yeah. So the Waldorf Streichfett, I feel like that covers the Selena territory very, very, very nicely. And yeah, it's digital, but it sounds really cool. And whenever I want string synths, that is my go-to, easily. So I don't know if I'll bother getting the Selena, just based upon the fact that I have the Streichfett. But we'll see. Right next to the Streichfett, we have the... let me go back to the MIDI board for a second. So, what's cool about that is that you have 88 weighted keys. The MIDI board is circa, say, 1985, something like that. So, 88 weighted keys, and supports polyphonic aftertouch, among other things. So, there really aren't a ton of poly aftertouch keyboards available. There are only a very small handful today that you can find that support it. I think more these days, if you're going to find something along those lines, it'll be more like something that supports MPE. What is that? MIDI polyphonic expression, which is similar but a little more involved than that. Anyway, good board though. We have my very messy open right now. I don't even have the side panel on it right now, but my music room PC, and on top of that is my Uno synth. What is that? The IK Multimedia Uno synth. Nice sounding synth and dirt cheap. So if you're looking to dip your toes into a real analog mono synth, that's a great place to start. Just super cheap. Anyway, next to the Streichfett, we've got a Roland JU-06 boutique. Again, sorry for the camera work here. This is not... come on. Work with me. Yeah, there we go. At one point, I had all of the original 3 boutique reissues. This was the only one that I ended up keeping. The JX3P clone that they did, I just never liked the sound of it. And the Jupiter sounded good, but it was only 4-note polyphony, and when weighing whether to keep that versus use the Roland plugin, I just decided to use the plugin so I could get more polyphony out of it. And then, of course, the Blofeld. I think somebody asked me the other day what my favorite synth was. I think at the time I answered the ARP Odyssey, but really it's probably the Blofeld. I think I've had the most fun making patches on that. That is sitting on top of my Roland A50, which is another polyphonic aftertouch MIDI controller. Yeah, my chair's in the way, so you can't really see it too well. Yeah, sorry about that. Told you this was super informal. Very good feeling synth action keybed on that. Yeah, good controller. And right next to the Blofeld, hard to see. We'll see if I can zoom in tight on it. Yeah, just barely. You can see the Waldorf rocket. You know, I haven't really heard the Waldorf two-pole filter. Yeah, I'd be curious to check one of those out. As far as the Blofeld goes, yeah, I love it. It's quirky, but you can make sounds on it that I don't know. I love the synth engine on it. I love the sounds that I can get out of it, and I feel like I can't really get those sounds anywhere else. Let's see. Over here, this is, again, super messy. You guys should be used to that by now. I've got a Arturia Micro Brute next to a Mini Brute. Come on, work with me here. Sorry, my tripod stinks. Yeah, there we go. The Mini Brute I used all over my album. Used that a ton. It's not a fat monosynth, I'd say, but it has a very distinct sound to it. Very affordable. I like the interface on it. It's very easy to get around, and very easy to make, you know, really cool, distinct sounds on it. And that's kind of the name of the game, right? Up here, I don't have a good home for these guys at the moment, but on top of my server rack, we've got an Arturio Microfreak and a Korg Monologue. The Microfreak is, I mean, some people hate it because of the keybed, and I get it. But if you're looking for innovation these days, you know, who's doing something different in synthesizers and not just churning out the same thing over and over again, this is where it's at. Because Arturia is specifically with this board really knocked it out of the park with just the wide range of functionality and the wide range of different sounds that you can get out of it. And even though the keyboard is weird, the different levels of expression that you can get out of it as compared to, you know, pretty much any other keybed that's out there, you know, save for what do you call the things? I can't remember what they're called off the top of my head, but those very unusual kind of squishy keyboards. I'll remember the name eventually. And of course the Korg Monologue, which is a nice, fun, affordable monosynth. Good stuff there. What else? Oh, yeah. What you can see below that is my Yamaha G10C. That's the brains for my Yamaha guitar synthesizer. I need to change the strings on that so I can play that for you guys in a live stream coming up sometime soon. Everything else, there's a lot more, guys. Seaboard, thank you, Cameron. Stuart, thanks for joining. Again, this is super informal, guys, so thank you for bearing with me and bearing with me with all this shaky camera work that I've got going on. Way back in the poorly lit depths of the studio, I've got my rack of guitars. So I've got my Strandberg, my Strat, my Carvin, my Richie Kotzen Telecaster, and my PRS baritone. All great. Well, except for the Strat. Honestly, I don't love the Strat. Don't tell anybody. I wanted to. Those are all in front of my mostly electronic kit. It's an old set of D-Drum 4s. Again, that all dates back to probably around 2000 or 2001 when I got that. It's held up okay. I used it to track all of the drums on... Thank you, David. Track all of the drums on my album. But I used it to control a plugin called BFD3 from F Expansion. So yeah, a little bit hard to see. One of these days, I'll try to get it set up so that I can get a camera and some lighting. Or lighting I can do. Lighting I've got, but see if I can get a camera over there so that during my live streams I can actually play some drums for you guys, because that's probably, next to guitar and bass, that's probably the instrument that I'm next most proficient at. Keyboards is fourth, my fourth most proficient instrument. But it would be nice to get back into doing some more drumming. There's a lot more, guys, but it's going to be difficult to show because the camera really isn't in a good portable spot. So I think what I'll do is I'll just leave it at that. I really appreciate you guys kind of tuning in and watching and asking questions. Oops. Oh, shoot. I needed to be done before 3 o'clock. Doggone it. Guys, I will catch you later. See ya. Bye-bye.